Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast, where we focus on the journey, not the destination. Brought to you by the Baseball Blue Book app. Are you in the book? And now, your host, Eric Wobanaw. All right, welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast. Excited to have Patrick Bailey with us today. Sir, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well. I think I said this last podcast, but I think fall is finally here in the Midwest. Down in Missouri, it was 85 degrees this last weekend, and it's now 40. So we get changes of weather very, very quickly. But nice to be in the fall, and nice to have you on the program. Excited to hear what you're doing. Couple stories. We got to know each other a little bit before the podcast, and really looking forward to this. So, sir, why don't you spend a few minutes just introducing yourself, kind of your background, and a little bit about what you're doing today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I started my teaching coaching career back in 1978 in Eugene, Oregon at Willamette High School. So I coached high school for 16 years. I was a head coach in high school for 12 years, took 1 year off in 91, 92, and was the pitching coach at the University of Portland. And back then, every time I made $4,000 that year coaching college baseball. And I had no business, but I was the recruiting coordinator for that year as well. And I probably spent more money than I made that year with travel and everything else that I did. But then I went back to Westland High School. My superintendent said, "Hey, make a decision, get a full-time job at Portland or come back to Westland." So I went back and was there for 3 years. My last 13 years in high school, I was a head baseball coach, and I also helped out, was an assistant football coach. And in 1995, I became the head baseball coach at George Fox University, which is a Division III school, private Christian school up in the Portland area. I was there for 12 years after being in high school for 16, and we won a national championship there in 2004, Division III championship up in Appleton, Wisconsin. And then in 2007, Pat Casey got a hold of me and asked if I'd be interested in being one of his assistants, and we met and had a great conversation. We probably spent the first hour. I asked him, I said, "I know you're the head baseball coach at Oregon State and we're friends, but I want you to tell me why do you coach? What's your purpose?" And we spent an hour talking about building men of character. It was awesome. It had nothing to do with baseball.
That's
and
great.
So I said, "I'm in," after talking to my wife first, and was there from 2007 till 2020. So I coached for 42 years, and then in 2020, pandemic hit, and I had major shoulder surgery that January, and ended up retiring from coaching and wasn't ready to retire. I don't see anything about retirement in the Bible. And so I went to work for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes in December of 2020. And I am the multi-area director for the Willamette Valley, which covers from, if you're familiar with Oregon, all Salem's the state capital, from Salem down to Eugene and out to the coast. So I currently have 9 people working under me.
That's great. I love what you just said. The Bible doesn't talk about retiring, so you had to figure out something else to keep keeping the mind sharp, right? As soon as you stop doing things, other things start dwindling. So let's start with the current FCA Ministries. Big time. That's nationwide. You've got an area up there. With those that don't know what the real purpose of that is, why don't you go into a little bit about what your objectives are and kind of your responsibilities?
Sure. I'll start with our vision, our mission, our values, and what we do. So our vision is to see the world transformed by Jesus Christ through the influence of coaches and athletes. And you and I both know coaches and athletes have huge influences on campuses, including college campuses.
Yep.
I remember the year we won the national championship at George Fox, we had record enrollment the following year at George Fox by several hundred people. So you can have a positive influence and a negative influence. So that's the first thing. Our mission is to lead every coach and athlete into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and his church. And I love the fact that we're here for churches. I mean, we're a parachurch ministry. It's an international organization. It's the third largest parachurch organization in the world. Campus Crusade for Christ
Yep.
is the largest, which is based in Orlando, Florida. Young Life is second, and we're third. So it's a huge organization. And then our values are to pursue excellence, which I love the word excellence versus success because it's an inner thing in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Teamwork, serving, and I forgot what the fourth one was. Anyhow, it's all about that. It's all about helping people, and we're here for people. We're here for coaches. I'm very fortunate to have the people that work for me. I also do. I do some of what we call huddles, which are athletic specific Bible studies. I have one. I'm leading Western Oregon right now, which is Western Oregon's a Division II school in Monmouth, Oregon. And I also am involved with a coach's Bible study where we meet weekly at 6:30 from 6:30 to 7:15 in the morning on Wednesdays. And we're going through a thing right now that was set up by SCA that's called 360 Coach, which starts out with dealing with the athlete's heart. And you and I both know from coaching, if you can grab a guy's heart
Yeah.
or a girl's heart, depending on what you coach, you grab the athlete and you get them to buy into what you're doing. And the second thing is obviously motivation or psychology, and the last thing is strategy. And I always tell people I don't spend a lot of time talking about strategy. I think culture eats strategy for breakfast. Your culture's it's totally dependent on how successful you're going to be
Yeah.
with whatever program you're running in terms of the culture that you run and the integrity that's in it.
It's not only that it eats its lunch. If you don't have culture, you can't focus on strategy. So it's kind of a precursor of everything else. And you talk the coaches that I talk, it seems like there's a real big push for the character. And so I guess that goes right into the first question. You know, I think a lot of people when they see athletes, they seem to have a a higher level of expectation and character. Do you think that comes through the sport, or do you think that is required to be successful in the sport?
I'm going to tell you right now, I'll tell you how important character is and influence is. Billy Graham, and I really believe this, Billy Graham said a coach will have more impact on an individual's life than the average person does outside of their family an entire lifetime,
Yep.
both good and bad. So I think it's the influence that coaches have. Coaches, young coaches, I didn't understand this when I was a young coach. Coaches have a major impact on people's lives. I have players call me today that I coached 25, 30 years ago.
Yep.
I'm meeting with a guy one-on-one right now that I met in high school. We do every Tuesday morning from 6:30 to 7:30. We meet and do a Bible study together and talk about life. So the mentor relationship and the opportunity to have an impact, a positive impact on young people's lives is just baseball for me was a sideshow for what was really important, and that was the development of character, to help them to become great husbands if they choose to get married, to be great leaders in their communities, to be example setters, just all those things that are to be hard workers
Yep.
in their communities, all those things that are really important to helping a society out.
There's a real push right now to kind of clear the colleges from religion. What struggles are you guys having, and what successes can you point to that really in today's society it's a real challenge, and so speak to a little bit about that, or your mindset is, hey, it's always going to be a challenge and we're just going to keep moving forward.
Well, first of all, legally, if it's a club and it's ran by students like in high school, because we train our students to lead the huddles in high
Right.
schools. As long as it's student led, it's legal because if you have clubs on campus, you have to allow Christian organizations to be on campus. Where you get in trouble is if I went into a high school and started uh, talking about Christ to students, that's where the line would be drawn. And then at colleges, um, if you meet in a specific place on campus and students come because they want to come, It's a club and it's a choice. So you don't require kids to be a part of that. You just allow them the opportunity to be a part of it. So we had Bible studies when I was at Oregon State every week for guys that wanted to be a part of it, and we always had, I don't know, from as few as probably 10 to as many as almost 20 players attending every week. So, and it wasn't something I ran. We had a person on campus run it for us.
Right. Uh, you know, sports. The other thing that a lot of people realize or start recognizing when you hear a lot of these coaches talk, character, discipline, accountability. These are a lot of things that come from someplace, and there's really there's a secret to the success of a man or a woman, and so speak to kind of how what your ministry and what your values that you're teaching, how does that transpose into the sport world, and why is it so important?
Well, integrity and character. I mean, you can't outlive a bad character, and a person's character and who they are and what they're about. And I'm not saying people don't make mistakes, because I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But your character, if you have great character and you have integrity, then you're going to have a great reputation, and you have to be consistent with it. I mean, I was a recruiting coordinator and associate head coach at Oregon State my last 6, 7 years with Case before I became the interim head coach in 2019 at Oregon State. We won the national championship in 18. That team, that was the absolute epitome of high character guys, and guys that truly loved each other, didn't care about their own personal performance. They were selfless. It was such a fun group to coach. The 3 years all those guys were together, and we had a lot of success. I mean, in 2017 we finished 56-6, which was the best record in college baseball since like 1982, and that was before the 11.7 scholarship requirement came in and all that stuff. And I can tell you, the number one reason why we won so much is because our guys bought in to being a family and a team and loving each other and being selfless and having high character.
No, absolutely. When you're recruiting for that, what are some things that, the understanding character is tough, especially when you've only got a short period of time to try to understand somebody. What are some of the things that you learned to do that kind of allowed you to kind of sift through the shaft and finding that grain that you knew was going to be able to fit in the program that you were working with?
Well, I'm going to tell you, the very first phone call I had with every guy that I recruited and that we recruited, number one, you better be a high character guy. Because if you don't have a high character and you don't have great moral values, you don't have integrity, you can't be a part of our culture. You will not last in our culture at Oregon State University. And secondly, you better be a hard worker. And I firmly believe hard work starts in the classroom, and it leaks out onto the baseball field. And guys that don't do well in class, they're very inconsistent on the field as well. So we're really fortunate. I made sure that I would say 95% of the players that we brought in from 2012, when I became the recruiting coordinator, until I finished, were guys that were 3.5 or higher GPA students. A lot of I'll just tell you our first round picks. Nick Madrigal was a 4.0 student in high school. He was the fourth pick in the draft in 18. Caden Grenier was a first round pick. He was a 3.98 or 3.95 student in high school. Adley Rutschman, who was the first pick in the draft, was in 2019. And I've known Adley since he was 5 years old. Him and his dad and I are really good friends. And Randy was my catching coach at George Fox University. But Adley he had one B plus and everything else was an A in high school. And he brought 45 credits into college, college credits when he came in. So, the first thing is character, the second thing is working hard, and the third thing is you better be selfless. You better make other people more important than yourself, because we will not tolerate selfishness in our program.
You talk a lot of things that are hard to teach. So if there are some coaches that are listening and they're young and they're new, and that's what they want in their program, because you hear it all the time: character and discipline and high quality people. It's easier said than done. So when you're looking for these kids that are, you said it starts in the classroom, it leaks into the field. How do you know? Right? We all make mistakes, but how do you know? Because your odds of success are so low, and there's so many things that can go wrong. But when you do this and you've been doing it as long as you have, what are some things that these young coaches can pick up? And I always ask, what's a piece of advice that you could give to players that may be, looking to go to college? But I guess I'm flipping that to what are some advice that you could give to coaches that are fairly young that are wanting that type of program that you've instilled in every place that you've been?
Yeah, I think first of all, let's just start with high school because you don't have a choice. It's who you have
Yeah.
that comes out and you make a decision. But in high school, it took me a while to figure this out. But when I started focusing on guys' character and character development, that's when we started winning a lot. I mean, I was basically from 1981, 82 when I became a head coach till 1988. Our teams were 500, maybe a little bit above 500 or below 500. And when I really started focusing on the character piece and character development and teamwork and making others more important than yourself, which is kind of when it started, was in 1988, 89. And I also got to be honest with you, a guy told me until I learned a lot about pitching, we weren't going to win a lot. So I really focused on learning a lot about pitching and got a hold of Tom House and got to know Tom and some other people back in the day. So those two things, that first year that I did start focusing on that, not worrying about winning and just focusing on those culture type things. We got the state semifinals in the state of Oregon at the highest level. At the time it was 4A level, it's 6A level now. And then we won our league 5 out of the 6 years. And one year we didn't win our league. We got a state championship game in '95 before I went to George Fox. So it just made a huge difference. I mean, I rarely talked about winning from that point on. And honestly, I got some of that stuff from John Wooden and some of the books that were coming out with John Wooden at the time, because he rarely talked about winning. Yep. And just every little thing matters. I mean, every little thing matters. And so in practice, I wouldn't know. I told guys, you have two choices to come to practice. You're either a laser beam or you're a floodlight. And if you're in my practice, you better be a laser beam. The last thing I'll tell you that really got me is I read a book, and it was a teaching book. And one of the things it said that would help teachers be great teachers is to teach in segments. Don't ever teach longer than 8 minutes. Have them do a little segment. And I was a business teacher. I taught accounting, business law, business management in high school. And I also taught keyboarding, which was hard for me to teach because I didn't care a lot about teaching keyboarding. But I started doing that in my classrooms. And then I also adopted it into baseball. So here's an example of this. Like if you teach bunt defense, teach the very first, your basic bunt defense at first base. And that's it. Just teach it that day. And then 2 days later, come back. And if you have a special at first base, go review the basic, teach the special. And then the next time you bring bunting back, review your first base stuff. And then maybe do your basic at second base. And then you bring it back a couple days later and you add your special or 1 or 2 specials that you have at second base. So the maximum time we ever spent on bunt defense was 5 minutes.
Wow.
And then, you fly ball communication, 5 minutes. Rundowns, 3 minutes. First and third defenses, once you get them all in, and you do that in sequencing, like I talked about before, you teach in increments. Once you get them all in, no more than 5 minutes. So a typical practice plan for team defense would be, we'd always start out with something in the outfield, whether it was fly ball communication, or there's a thing I called outfield rules and relays, because we had rules based on where the ball was hit, not who the runner was. So we do fly ball communication, outfield rules and relays, something like that. Then we go into our infield stuff. And we had our outfielders do the base running stuff, not pitchers. I know a lot of guys have their pitchers do that. I did not want to get a pitcher hurt. And let's be honest, outfielders have to learn how to run bases. They also help them with base running. So we have butt defense, maybe some kind of PFP, and it'd go 20 minutes and we were done. But because we did short segments, we could bring it back 2 or 3 times a week. So like we always did fly ball communication a minimum 3 times a week. And so there, and the key was to do that so that mistakes wouldn't be made during games. So teaching increments, never go more than 8 minutes with anything. I mean, I see coaches sometimes when I watch them, they're teaching all their bunt defenses on the same day, and then they get upset when they bring them back 3 days later and the kids don't remember anything. Yep. It's too much information. Yep. Teach in increments and never go more than 8 minutes with it. Even with hitting stuff that you do and your rotations and things, they should never be. If you have 4 guys in a hitting group, a rotation should never be more than 14 minutes or greater than that. So, I mean, we had 6 rotations typically offensively, and they'd be in those 6 rotations, we'd go probably 10-minute segments with rotation.
So you've gone through a lot of different, coaching, concepts, talked about character. When you hear the word coach, what's the descriptor that you would use beyond anything else? One word. Leadership. Explain that. Leadership. Yeah, talk about what that means.
And I'm just telling you, if you're not consistent, kids aren't stupid. Young people aren't stupid. Yeah. If you're not consistent in your leadership ability, then they'll look to somebody else. And so I think that, if you're going to lead people, you got to be consistent in your own life. I mean, if you're going to teach character, you better have character. If you're going to be a great coach, then you better be going to the ABCA clinic. Yep. You better be going to other clinics. You better have elder coaches. I had a great mentor, a guy named Terry Polreese, who was 10 years older than me, and he helped me so much with learning the game of baseball. Oh, my goodness. And Tom House helped me, and I had other people helping me that were older than me that knew more than I did. So I think having an open mind and being willing to listen. I remember one time I was in ATEC at a guy's house who owned ATEC, a guy named Eddie Derricks, and Jim Lefevre was there. And Jim and Terry Polreese and myself, and there's a whole bunch of coaches there, but Jim started talking, and I just sat there and listened. And several of the coaches, they're busy socializing and didn't stay around to listen. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh,
they're missing.
Those guys just missed an amazing opportunity to learn from somebody who knows the game. Really, at the time, was like one of the hitting gurus in professional baseball. So when you have opportunities to learn, open your ears, keep your mouth shut, and have an open mind. Yeah. So, I think those things are really important, that you have mentors and that if you're learning, you're growing. If you're not learning, I mean, I'm going to keep learning till the day I die. When I started working for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, I bet you I've taken 8 classes, and I love to read. I mean, you can see behind me, I have a ton of books, and almost all those are leadership books.
Yep.
They all have something to do with leadership. I love John Maxwell's books on leadership. So read books that have to do with leadership.
I think Bailey, you're giving us a master class of what to do. So I appreciate that. There's been a lot of talk about new school, old school. Obviously, with some of the new rules and different things that are coming out, but more importantly, the philosophies. I think I already know the answer, but I'm gonna throw this out to you. Do you see a difference between new school and old school?
I don't even know what that means. I mean, just be who you are. I'm not buying this new school, old school stuff. I know we have a lot more information, and analytics are a big deal now. But here's something I can tell you right now. We have some guys that played for us at Oregon State that if we just looked at analytics, they would have never have played for us. Yep. But because of the person that they were and the energy they brought to our team, when they played, we won. So how do you measure a guy's heart when you're looking at analytics?
Good point.
And if I was recruiting today, I'd do the same thing I did before. I'd recruit high character guys. And by the way, position player wise, I'd recruit speed. I recruit speed for defense, not offense. If I'm a college
Yeah.
coach, I'm going to recruit speed over power. I just am, and if hopefully we have some guys that your corner guys that'll have some power, but you know, speed for defense. I recruit pitchers that are strike throwers. I'll take a guy that's 89, 92, 93. That's a strike thrower that doesn't walk anybody any day over a guy that's 94 to 98 miles an hour that doesn't consistently feed the strike
Yeah.
zone. So you can talk about spin rate. You can talk and by launch angle. By the way, is how the ball comes off the bat. It's not your swing.
It's
And the swing stuff that we did, speaking of just learning, Bob Kais from Biokinetic Research Institute in Salt Lake City, Utah, who works with Major League Baseball, I learned a ton from Bob about both hitting and pitching and the biomechanics. And they do three-dimensional motion analysis. And I learned a ton of stuff from him. So, I think like launch angle is the end result of a fundamentally correct stroke and getting down on time and arriving on
right.
time. So that's a launch angle to me.
Yeah.
And then the spin rate stuff, we had a guy that was 34-8 for us at Oregon State over his career. And if you looked at his spin rate numbers and stuff like that, at best they were average. And yet he got people out because he never walked anybody, and he knew how to add and subtract and work both sides of the plate.
Yep.
And so I mean, I think that stuff's all good, but I also think you have to look at a person's heart and where they're at and their character and stuff like that, because that makes a big difference.
Well, I wish you were recruiting me. I was a speed guy and a character guy. I just lacked some of the tools.
You gotta have bat speed to hit Division I level.
I had fast speed. I was fast. I just didn't have a good arm. Yeah, it's funny that you talked about that. One of the comments that I don't know if I coined it, but I've talked to so many people, and I asked that same question, and I hear, this is what I hear, and you kind of alluded to it. All the new stuff is a confirmation of what you already can see. You even said it. The launch angle is they got the mechanics of the swing. Well, you can see the mechanics of their swing, right? You don't need to see what the launch angle is to know that if this was correct or not. And I think that really, it is a good blend. And I think a lot of the people that are taking advantage of some of the things, it might be just a confirmation of, hey, I am seeing what I'm seeing, and it does equate to something that might be good. There's been a lot of the other thing, and I know your tail end of your coaching career and the new into what you're doing now, and it really fits because when we talk about kind of the environment now, so we have new school, old school of kind of the statistics and the analytics and all of those things, but there's also this environmental change and shift of the character, and this goes back to character. The last few years have been really a challenge in the fact of understanding who we are. And I think a lot of people have done a great job of coming out of this COVID stuff and redefining who they are. I think character is rising to the top. The cream rises, right? Talk about some of the challenges that you've seen over the last, and you don't have to put the first, these last couple of years, but just over your entire career, some of those challenges that really it's culture that has driven the changes, and what are the biggest challenges that you've had, and some of the successes in what you do to kind of keep yourself footed on a strong foundation.
Yeah, I think first of all it goes back to the character thing. I mean, just be consistent in your character and who you are and what you're about. And we're put on this earth to help other people. I think the best coaches are guys that are servants. This isn't about me. It's about my players and our program. It says, just take me out of the equation, and make other people more important than yourself, because, we always told our guys at Oregon State, we are here to serve you and to help you become a better person and a better baseball player. And so I think it's important that people understand. The second thing is, with all the things that are going on and the craziness in our country today, there's a major problem with young people with mental and emotional issues. And so they need to know they're unconditionally loved and that they're cared for. And so, I think it's important that players know And that, it's funny when you say you unconditionally love somebody, that doesn't mean you let them get away with stuff. That means you hold them accountable.
Absolutely.
Because if you really love and care for somebody, you'll hold them accountable for their behavior because you care about
Yep.
them, which is crazy that people don't put those two things together today. And so I'm sure you're very well aware of the number one issue or the number one cause of death for ages 15 through 25 has always been car wrecks. It's now
Yep.
suicide. And so, that's, I think the biggest reason why is because of confusion and people don't see their value. I mean, it says in the Bible that you're uniquely knitted in your mother's womb. You're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you know it full well. If you help kids to realize how special they are and how unique they
Right.
are, I mean, everybody has their own unique DNA, which just blows my mind because there's 8 billion people in the world today. We just hit 8 billion in
Yeah.
October. And every one of us is uniquely knitted in our mother's
Yep.
womb. And that's Psalm 139, 13, and 14. I love that area. The Bible where it talks about how special and how unique we are.
Yeah. One of the other things that I think is being interpreted incorrectly, in my opinion, is the whole movement of self-love. Because we are supposed to be selfless and servants, not necessarily self-love is not the answer to depression, right? It's serving other people. Are you, is that comments on that thought?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. I mean, when the focus is always about you and me, 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 me,
Yeah.
me, you're just,
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what circumstances you are, I always get a kick out when people say, I just want to be happy. Come on, man. Things happen. My wife has had 25 surgeries since we've been married. We've been married for 45 years. And she's one of the most joyful people I'm around.
Yeah.
Even though she has constant pain issues, management issues, and she gets migraines almost every day. It's crazy. But
Wow.
she has joy in her heart. And there's a big difference between being happy and being joyful. And
Right.
joyful people are the most fun people to be around. And you can just tell
Yeah.
they just really enjoy life. So I think helping people to be joyful and be grateful, be thankful. I'm so thankful and so blessed. I'm so fortunate. I have a beautiful wife. I have two beautiful children. I have three beautiful grandchildren. I'm very fortunate and very blessed. And it has nothing to do with how big my house is or how many cars I have or how much money I have in my bank account or my retirement account, which is getting hammered right now, by the way. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Anyhow, those things, if I if I looked at my retirement accounts, how much money I lost, and that predicated whether I'm going to be happy today or not, that's
Right.
stupid.
Right.
I'm going to be joyful in all
Yeah.
circumstances. I'm going to be thankful in all circumstances. So it's just an attitude
Well,
thing.
it conceptually it sounds really easy. The problem is we don't focus on the correct things, like you said. When your drive is for things that will not bring you joy, it's just it's you're in a circle. You just keep going. You're a rat. You're on the wheel, the hamster wheel, going round and round and round, chasing things that you're never going to accomplish or to capture. But like I said, this has really been a great conversation just about character building. I think it's a perfect fit for you being running the ministry up in that area. What are some of the most, we're going to talk challenges and then also the successes on that. What do you find today that you're really looking for that you may need help doing? Is it just volunteers? Is it just acceptance of what you're doing? Is it coaches that just don't have the time to do it? What are some of the biggest challenges that you would be able to address on this podcast?
Well, the biggest thing is just finding the right people on the seat of the bus,
Yeah.
to steal a term from John Gordon. So,
Yep.
it's just getting people that want to work, that love the Lord, but more importantly, not just more important, but they also love people. They love spending time with athletes. Let's be honest, athletes and coaches have such a big influence, both good and bad. So I want to focus on helping coaches and athletes be better people. And so the avenue that I'm in right now, I'm doing two things right now that I love. I love sports, not just baseball. I love
Yeah.
sports, and I love the Lord. So I'm getting to be a part of two things that I love doing. And I have on my board back here, I have Matthew 9:37-38 on my board, and it says, "The harvest is plentiful, but it's therefore the Lord of the harvest to provide workers for the field." And then the second verse I have is First Chronicles chapter 4, verse 12, I think. Sorry, First Chronicles chapter 4, verse 10, which talks about allow to increase our territory and to protect me. Why my territory is being increased. By increase my territory, I'm talking about getting more workers
Yep.
and being in more schools so that we can have an impact and a positive impact and a positive influence on people in those schools and those
You
communities.
know, it's a really exciting time. There's so many challenges, but the other thing on your board there I see is sports don't build character; they reveal it. And I think what
Yep.
the hard times is also revealing the character as well. When you had adversity, the challenges, things that you really start looking at what matters. Are you seeing kind of a resurgence? Are you seeing, people are looking, like you said, suicide is the number one killer of young people. There's a loss of purpose. There's a loss of understanding what the world's about. You have certainly a message and an answer for a lot of people. Are you seeing kind of a what we would call a revival in that area at the high school and college level?
With so much misinformation and confusion out there today, I think people, including adults, they just want the truth.
Right.
They just want the truth. And so I think a lot of people are searching for that. They're searching for, what's my purpose? Why do I exist? And so I think that, just all the young people I'm talking to, um, I just know that coaches that are high character coaches, people that are involved in things like what I'm doing, um, kids just gravitate to that.
Yeah.
And the first thing is,
Yeah.
again, if you can love on people and show them that you care for them, I don't care what they've done, because we all make
Yep.
mistakes. No one's without sin. If you just love them and care for them and let them know how much you care about every aspect of their lives, you're gonna attract those people to want to be around you.
That's fantastic. Great. This has been really good conversation, sir, and I appreciate you joining me today. Kind of wrapping it up. What are talk about some of the things that you're doing today, and maybe if there's an event or something, and some way that a player or a coach can get involved in your organization. What are some things that you can share, just current and what you've got in the future?
Yeah, if you go on fcaresources.org, there's a ton of resources in there that have to do with FCA huddles, what the huddles are about. So fcaresources.org is a place to go. And then if you just go fca.org, it talks about the history of our program. And FCA was started by a guy named Don McClellan.
Mm-hmm.
And Don McClellan, kind of when he was going to Oklahoma State University, I think it was called something else back then, but he kind of got the idea in 1947. Then he really got going with it in 1954. And he met with Branch Rickey, who was the owner of the Dodgers. And basically what he said, if we can get athletes to sell on television, to sell cigarettes and chewing tobacco and alcohol and shaving cream or whatever else they were all selling back then, why can't we get them to sell Christ? And so that's how FCA got started. And so it's just a really neat organization that is Christ-centered, but it's all about people and about taking care and loving on people. So I'm really excited about having an opportunity to be a part of it. And by the way, our 4 values: excellence, teamwork, serving, and integrity. Can't believe I forgot integrity.
Well, now that's fantastic. I mean, it's something that I see a lot more. There's a search. There's a void that certainly the governments of the world cannot fulfill. And I think that they're attempting and they're trying to. Your reputation is one that I have heard for a long time. I appreciate the opportunity to spend the last 45 minutes with you. I'm excited to see what you have in store for bringing the ministry to different places, and certainly your leadership is one that is needed today, and it's just exciting to see. So I appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, I'll just close by saying this: we complain about so many things that we have zero control over.
Yep.
How about just focus on the things that are inside your circle of control?
Yeah.
Focus on those things and make a difference in your communities. So
That's all you can. That's all you can ask. That's all you can do. That's.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And we'll be talking soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.